Hi guys, it's Mirika Vandens here, and today we're in for a really exciting video topic. It certainly did blow my mind when I came across this topic, and ever since it really changed my health and the way I think about food also in a way. Because I hadn't heard of this before, and I really want to share this information because it literally can save lives and also bring back life quality. And in case you're wondering what this all has to do with obesity or weight gain, you really want to stay tuned because it has a whole lot to do with this. And if you've watched my last Q&A about what makes fat people fat, then you might have wondered how exactly non-organic food or pesticides can actually influence weight maintenance, your body's ability to maintain your weight at its natural set point. So how does non-organic food promote weight gain and disease? It's also actually like my reason 3 video. If you've watched my videos, I had a reason 1 and a reason 2 for vegan health crisis, for my personal vegan health crisis, and I assume that I'm not the only one in this world. And this is reason 3. So let's get into it. So the short answer to how does non-organic food promote weight gain and disease is that glyphosate, which is a compound in Roundup, which is sprayed on non-organic crops, it's an endocrine disruptor that destroys your gut microbiome by blocking the shikimate pathway and lowers serotonin levels, and thereby causes a diversity of systemic chronic diseases. And so we're of course getting into the long answer now, because I certainly didn't understand how that would be possible. It sounded like a non-scientific, a scientifically unsupported claim, and a little bit woo-woo. And so I myself brushed the organic thing off for years, thinking it was exaggerated and just too expensive and not worth the money and woo-woo and not scientifically supported. And I've experienced the health consequences myself as a reason 3 of my personal vegan health crisis. And if you haven't seen my timeline yet, go to my website. I still clearly notice the impact on my digestion when eating some non-organic products. Not all non-organic products. I do eat non-organic products. I really want to make this straight. I'm not eating organic only. I will go into this in another video, how I deal personally with this. But some specific non-organic products, I really do feel the digestive difference in my intestines. So when I eat specific products made up of grains or legumes, for example wheat bix, which I'm personally a big fan of taste-wise, but it really affects me every time I eat it, and other wheat products like organic wheat products, there's never been a problem for me personally. And so I have no issues with organic wheat or legume products ever. So that was my personal experience actually lines up and is in line with the science that there is around this whole topic of glyphosate, which just came up in the last few years actually, that it was also made public to every one of us. You usually really have to research and actively search for it to come across it. So that's why I just want to share all of this information as well. So please give this a like if you want me to make a video on tips how I personally deal with this topic in my everyday life, because I'm not going into that in this video. In this video, I'm really emphasizing on the whole topic itself, why it's such a huge thing for health and obesity. If you have any health issues, you really want to understand this whole thing and watch this video until the end. You will not regret it, I promise. So please take a moment to like and subscribe if you haven't yet. It helps my channel and this video specifically to be more seen and promoted on YouTube, by the YouTube algorithm. So that's the best thing you can return to me if you want. What I'm about to share with you was one of the 3 factors in my recovery from bowel inflammation, systemic inflammation, leaky gut, immune reactions, and also parasitic infestation. And I believe that without this factor, I could not have properly recovered. And from where the only thing I could eat was fruit puree to now where I can eat literally anything and everything in the plant realm. It takes a lot of contextualizing to be able to understand the whole issue phenomenon. I'll go into all aspects of glyphosate, scratching on the surface and putting an emphasis on the topic of obesity as one of the many diseases caused by glyphosate, because people tend to be more concerned about their weight rather than other areas of their health and other areas of their body. So I kind of use it as a bait for people to get in touch with the whole issue. But it's only one of the many diseases, which I'll tell you all of them and how that is even possible in this video. So all upcoming info now is relevant to understanding how glyphosate contributes to obesity and plenty of diseases. So if anyhow possible, avoid to just jump further into the video, because it really all adds up to your understanding of how this is possible. Because you might jump to the end of this video to see what it has to do with weight gain, but then in the end end up not understanding it. So just take your time. So I'll only read the absolute essence of the sources to you and recommend you to read the entire sources yourself, which I'll link in the info box. And I'll also have some mind-blowing graphics for you. It's a graph, a statistical graph that will show you the correlation, also causation, perhaps, between obesity and other diseases and glyphosate. So this video might be long, but this info is too important to be spread out over several videos, as I believe it all needs to be said in one go. So without further ado, let's go. First, if you only watch one video this year, let it be this one. This first source, which all of them are linked in my description box, the first source is the link to an interview to a podcast of Rich Roll. And this episode was made with Dr. Zach Bush, and he's an expert on this whole field. And this whole 2-hour interview, I mean, it sounds really exaggerated, but it did change my life in a very positive way, because it made me start to think about this whole topic, and it really, in many aspects, opened my eyes. It made me understand the why behind the issue, like how glyphosate is impacting our body and destroying our guts and destroying our health without us noticing. Because I thought, well, if it was such a big problem, then I'd know by now. Like all of the people, they would have already talked about it, right? So it will not be such an issue because I haven't heard about it yet. But turns out that money is involved, and this whole topic is really not talked about, whereas it should be talked about in the whole media. So watch this interview. It is worth every second. I'll just go into a few points of this video that opened my eyes. So basically, in the late 1990s and the early 2000s, we were seeing diseases seeming to be completely different organ systems go epidemic in the population simultaneously. In 1975, there was only 1 in 5,000 children autistic. And now, like in 2018, 1 year ago, there is 1 in 36 children autistic. Imagine that. Also, cancer. 1 of 2 people gets cancer when they're aging by now. And there was an Alzheimer's increase, Parkinson's increase. Many species or gender or organ-specific diseases all took off at the same time in the mid-1990s. There was also an autoimmune disease epidemic. Dr. Bush, he was thinking maybe there are not 1,000 different diseases because they all started at the same time. There might only be one disease, like one true cause of disease, which he says is chronic inflammation. And this is nothing new, like many doctors nowadays actually say that. So inflammation is a normal biological response to an injury. And 60% of the volume and 80% of the work of the immune system work is done in the gut lining. Our gut lining is the largest surface we have contact with the outward world with. So it's actually 2 tennis courts in surface area, like in comparison to our skin, which is only 1.8 square meters, which is nothing in comparison. So our gut membrane is only 1 cell thick. That is half of the width of a human hair. So it's really, really, really thin. And this protects you from everything that is coming from the outside into your body. So technically your gut is considered the outside of your body, not the inside, because it actually protects you what is coming from the outside into your body. Like everything you eat, everything you breathe, everything goes in there. And then there is this gut lining that is the barrier between the outside and the inside of your body. This is really interesting to think about. Like our guts are actually the outsides of our body. And that's where it gets so obvious why it's so important to have a healthy gut with a healthy microbiome, because when this is screwed up, then you are going to experience health problems of any sort. Our bodies are engineered for us being inherently in contact with the ecosystem and nature around us. And it's when we start to take nature and screw with nature, for example, spraying pesticides on our crops, that membrane is going to become really vulnerable and start to leak. And our immune system sits right behind that. 70% of our immune system volume is behind our gut lining. We must have been overwhelming the immune system of the public for some reason at the same time, somewhere between 1982 and 2000. So we did something wrong there to the environment that totally brought the protection system of our immune system out of whack. The problem is that glyphosate is a water-soluble toxin, and you don't want to introduce a water-soluble toxin into the environment because you can never get it back. Our organism is far more protective against fat-soluble toxins. For example, most xenoestrogens are actually fat-soluble, and these are stored in the fat. Like the body can actually protect itself, like the brain especially, from these toxins by storing them in fat cells. That doesn't happen with water-soluble toxins. So that's why glyphosate is so damaging to our gut lining and brain-gut barrier. It's literally going everywhere. And it's said that less than 0.1% of all Roundup, glyphosate is one compound in this product, Roundup, by Monsanto, and 0.1% of all Roundup actually hits a weed. And all the other 99+% get into the soil and water everywhere. 75% of all rain and water are contaminated with Roundup. Whoa, so before you even eat a bite of food, you're being hit by an antibiotic when you inhale air or rain fog. We're getting into the antibiotic effect of glyphosate because it actually was first patented, brought on the market as an antibiotic. Which explains a lot, right? Not funny. And the problem is with rain, even organic crops are rained on. So we have now locked this water-soluble toxin into our environment. And so that's bad news. So you might now think, well, then there's nothing I can do, like this is it. But there's good news. So there are bacteria and fungi that eventually digest the glyphosate, but we need to stop spraying that glyphosate so they can return. Current estimates are, if we stop spraying Roundup tomorrow, it would take about 50 years before our ecosystem saw a drop of Roundup below our toxic level. After World War II, we started chemical-based fertilizers for the first time. They said, yeah, no need to decrop, whatever you've always done traditionally, just forget it, no need for a crop rotation. And so that was the Green Revolution in the 1960s. These plants that were grown, they lacked nutrients. Yeah, then there was a new chemical because these plants were weak now. So then the weed killers came to life and the pesticides. And so in 1996, there was the start of GMO crops, so they can be sprayed on. So GMO was actually only invented, like the meaning behind GMO is that these GMO crops are resistant to glyphosate, to Roundup. It was specifically designed to be more resistant to Roundup, which also explains why you won't find any GMO in organic products. It just goes hand in hand. And it's crazy, but there's this chemotherapy substance, vincristine, and it is a naturally occurring alkaloid. In plants you will find all of these medicines, and it is made through the Shikimate pathway, which I'll explain later, that glyphosate blocks. So we've literally subtracted out of our food chain this form of chemotherapy, which is amazing. And you can only get it from plants. It's grown in allergies, then it is isolated and purified, and then sold for $28,000 per gram, which is 10 times more than gold. And so there's the money part, and we're now spraying Roundup on dandelions and other weeds which happen to contain this anti-cancer substance that glyphosate blocks. Isn't it ironic? And now you just have to ask yourself, who would want to own a product, glyphosate, that takes the medicinals out of food? You guessed it, it's a company that makes medicine, and that's the pharma industry, and that's why the whole Monsanto company was sold to Bayer, and it just all makes sense, right? Now I'm reading from the second source linked in my info box below. Glyphosate, the most widely used herbicide, is destroying human and animal health as a result of disruption of gut bacteria. It is associated with most of the diseases and conditions associated with a Western diet, including gastrointestinal disorders, also celiac disease. It might not be wheat that anyone is intolerant to, but actually the glyphosate that they are intolerant to. It's fascinating. You really want to look into this if you are having problems with wheat and gluten. I personally discovered that I really have a lot of problems with non-organic wheat products. No doubt about that. I've actually tried to convince myself that it's not the case a lot of times, but specific products really do cause me issues. But then with organic products, I never had a problem. So that actually goes hand in hand with this information that the celiac disease epidemic might not be a celiac disease epidemic, but a glyphosate disease epidemic, including gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, depression, autism, infertility, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. It is claimed by industry supporters that glyphosate is not poisonous to mammals. It inhibits an enzyme that mammals lack. However, we can only absorb nutrients by courtesy of the bacteria in our gut. And glyphosate disrupts our gut bacteria, without which we could not live. Our health depends on the bugs and bacteria in our gut. And these do have this pathway, this Shikimate pathway. And when the good bacteria is not surviving, then we on the long run are neither, kind of. Also, the glyphosate kills off beneficial gut bacteria and allows toxic bacteria to flourish. And the two key problems caused by glyphosate in the diet are nutritional deficiencies, especially minerals and essential amino acids, and systemic toxicity and inflammation. So now I'm getting to source 3 in the info box. 16 chronic diseases caused by glyphosate. Ever since the World Health Organization labeled Monsanto's herbicide glyphosate a possible carcinogen in 2015, several courageous scientists have been working to document its specific effects on human health, clearly correlating it to increases in disease. And the 16 reasons to eat 100% organic, well, I don't actually support this because it's too orthorexic. So it is possible to live in this world where glyphosate is everywhere without being like panicking about it. That's really important, actually. This video is not a reason to panic about this, okay? It's just to become aware of this topic, and then step by step just, taking your own consequences and making your own decisions about it, but not, by all means, don't panic about this, okay? Don't get obsessive about eating organic. I don't, and I'm happy to share how I personally deal with this. Just let me know in the comments and by a like if you want me to talk about it. So these 16 diseases caused by glyphosate are autism, obesity, diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, celiac disease, hypertension, infertility, cancer, ADHD and brain function, multiple sclerosis, autoimmune diseases, which are several diseases in themselves, depression, heart disease, kidney disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and Parkinson's disease. All these chronic diseases are on the rise directly parallel to the increasing use of glyphosate on crops. You can judge for yourself. Just because there's a correlation doesn't mean it's a causation of the issue. That's true in and of itself, but I think we can all just apply this information to our own lives and see if it aligns with our own bodies. When you think about it and have a whole overview, how it works and everything, then you can just make a rounded up decision for yourself. I'm just here to provide my own insights. And for me, these graphics just make so much sense to me because they were just reflecting my own experiences. And also the fact that it only started like in the late 90s, mid 90s, that all these came into existence. Isn't that mind-boggling? It's like, okay, like something must have gone wrong there. It can't be something that we've always done wrong. Glyphosate herbicide is an antibiotic that preferentially kills the good bacteria in your gut. Very bad. Neurological damage from glyphosate impairs the brain's ability to eliminate heavy metals and other toxins, which in turn blocks the pineal gland, causing a brain pattern that leads to autism and Alzheimer's disease. Glyphosate disrupts the gut bacteria's ability to produce needed amino acids, and this in turn causes nutritional deficiencies that affect brain function. Farmers use glyphosate to kill weeds and dry out crops just before harvest. However, this kills just about everything, both the weeds and the crop. Glyphosate is absorbed into the seeds we eat, both GMO and non-GMO. GMO crops already have glyphosate embedded in the seed of the plant. In both cases, glyphosate poisons our food in a way. Toxins in the modern food supply are now a major contributor to, and in some cases the causes of, virtually all chronic diseases. These diseases are chronic because doctors don't know how to make them stop again. So we could actually do something against these diseases. It's just really hard to get rid of this cause. Conversely to what researchers originally thought, the vast majority of diseases do not appear to have a genetic origin. Actually, 90% are the result of environmental causes, which includes exposure to pesticides and other diet-related toxins, which I've talked about in my last video if you're interested for the other weight gain causing endocrine disruptors. Monsanto argues that glyphosate is harmless to humans because we do not have the Shikamaru pathway. However, our beneficial gut bacteria do have this pathway, and we depend on them to supply us with essential amino acids, among other things. Other ingredients in Roundup greatly increase glyphosate's toxic effects, which bioaccumulate over time. Monsanto calls glyphosate safe after studies that lasted only 3 months. But we have the long-term effects now. Yet the negative effects won't show up until much later. Some of us have been bioaccumulating the toxin in our bodies for over 20 years. For me, no matter if it was the cause of my problems or not, for the recovery, how is anyone going to recover from such issues while eating something that has glyphosate on it and ingesting it with antibiotic effects, which is creating systemic inflammation and bowel inflammation and causing your whole gut microbiome to be even worse? How is that even possible? So I think for any gut issue, we really have to recognize that this is a big factor that can make a recovery from these issues possible and successful. Also with IBS and all of these things, leaky gut. I had this. I had hives all over my skin, itchy skin everywhere. I know how it is when your immune system reacts to particles of your food, and also to have painful digestion, gurgling all the time and all of that stuff, and pain, really severe pain. Glyphosate applications began in the mid-1990s. During the same time period, there has been exponential increase in the amount of glyphosate applied to food crops. A team of scientists identified a serious link between the increase in the use of glyphosate in the US and diseases such as diabetes, obesity, lipoprotein metabolism disorder, Alzheimer's, senile dementia, Parkinson's, multiple sclerosis, and autism. Childhood obesity has more than doubled in children and quadrupled in adolescents in the past 30 years. An experiment involving the transfer of a strain of endotoxin-producing bacteria from the gut of an obese human to the guts of mice caused the mice to become obese. Oh my gosh. Since glyphosate induces a shift in gut bacteria towards endotoxin producers, glyphosate exposure may contribute to obesity in this way. And glyphosate can cause an overgrowth of pathogenic bacteria in the gut. No more words needed. That says it all. Now I'm coming to the fourth source in the info box. Glyphosate's inhibition of cytochrome P450 enzymes is an overlooked component of its toxicity to mammals. These enzymes play crucial roles in biology, one of which is to detoxify xenobiotics. Thus, glyphosate enhances the damaging effects of other food-borne chemical residues and environmental toxins. So it's the chemical cocktail that we're dealing with that is really harmful to our guts. And our gut has a lot to do with weight gain and obesity and how our body is hormonally. Negative impact on the body is insidious and manifests slowly over time as inflammation damages cellular systems throughout the body. Consequences are most of the diseases and conditions associated with a Western diet, which include gastrointestinal disorders, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, depression, autism, infertility, cancer, and Alzheimer's disease. We explain the documented effects of glyphosate and its ability to induce disease, and we show that glyphosate is the textbook example of the disruption of homeostasis by environmental toxins. I've talked about homeostasis and how weight maintenance is part of the body's homeostasis in my last Q&A video. You're welcome to watch it after this video. So the thing with obesity is that obesity offers protection against gastrointestinal inflammation, in part because the endotoxin can be stored in adipose tissue, sparing the gut barrier from inflammatory damage. Thus, severe tryptophan deficiency, as might be induced by glyphosate's interference with tryptophan synthesis in plants and microbes, can lead to an extreme inflammatory bowel disease that would severely impair the ability to absorb nutrients through the gut, due to inflammation, bleeding, and diarrhea. I had all of this. If your stool is not normal, this is something you have to look into. This could easily explain the alarming increases that have been seen recently in inflammatory bowel diseases. Like, there's so many people having gut issues and any immune, like allergies, intolerances, anything they react to, and they've never reacted to anything before. I really think it really is on the rise in the last recent years. So now, source 5. Glyphosate is an antibiotic, and it destroys good gut bugs in a way that leads to weight gain, much like antibiotics are used to fatten up livestock. It's also a carcinogen. Nevertheless, it is a broad-spectrum herbicide considered to be nearly non-toxic to humans. However, glyphosate may be a key contributor to the obesity epidemic and the autism epidemic in the United States. And this also counts for Germany. And also all those developing countries are really catching up. Like the game of their glyphosate use has been terrific in the last years. Glyphosate suppresses EPSP synthase in the Shikamachi pathway of bacteria and plants. This mode of action is unique to glyphosate among all emergent herbicides. Humans do not possess this pathway, and therefore we depend upon our ingested food and our gut microbes to provide these essential nutrients. Glyphosate, patented as an antimicrobial, as an antibiotic, in 2010, has been shown to disrupt gut bacteria in animals, preferentially killing beneficial forms and causing an overgrowth of pathogens. If we know anything about obesity and our gut health, then we know that gut health is crucial for maintaining your weight effortlessly and, like, in general, maintaining the weight. The authors also observed disruption of mucosal folds and disarray of microvilli structure, which these microvilli are actually a big part in celiac disease. These are damaged in celiac disease in the intestinal wall, along with an exaggerated secretion of mucin throughout the alimentary tract. These features are highly reminiscent of celiac disease. Gluten peptides in wheat are hydrophobic and therefore resistant to degradation by gastric, pancreatic, and intestinal proteases. Like proteases and lipases and amylases are the digestive enzymes we have in our intestines and in our stomach to break down food. And if these have issues, we have an issue, and our weight maintenance as well. Thus, the evidence from this effect on fish suggests that glyphosate may interfere with the breakdown of complex proteins in the human stomach, leaving larger fragments of wheat in the human gut that will then trigger an autoimmune response, leading to the defects in the lining of the small intestine that are characteristic of these fish exposed to glyphosate and of celiac patients. So we have the same symptoms in celiac patients as in glyphosate patients, and that should make us think about this whole topic at the least. And that also explains the correlation between obesity and glyphosate. The usage of glyphosate on wheat in the US has risen sharply in the last decade in step with the sharp rise in the incidence of celiac disease. It's like 1 + 1 = 2, a parallel correlation. So now we have source 6, how pesticides could be making you fat. The impact of glyphosate on the gut microbiome. It's banned in several countries around the world. It's a probable carcinogen, and it can cause severe kidney and liver damage, as well as birth defects, brain abnormalities, and mental illnesses. Yet, we spray it all over our food. Glyphosate. Glyphosate could lead to obesity and weight gain, a consequence that may explain the correlation between the growing waistline of Americans and our growing use of genetically modified agriculture. It is known that glyphosate works similarly to an antibiotic, killing bacteria on crops by targeting specific genes and enzymes that are responsible for producing the building blocks of proteins called amino acids. Ingesting food products that have been sprayed with this bacteria-killing chemical can be detrimental to maintaining healthy, balanced systems in our body. Our gut is home to over 100 trillion bacteria, which compose the community of microorganisms in our gut, known as the gut microbiome. This microbiota thrives on what we consume, and our whole body synergistically thrives when we have a large, diverse gut microbiome. The microbiome has been linked to supporting our immune system through the production of antibodies. Killing the good bacteria in our gut microbiome can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, decreased insulin sensitivity, type 2 diabetes, and metabolic syndrome, all risk factors for obesity. Our microbiota is capable of fermenting indigestible carbohydrates, specifically dietary fiber. This fermentation process yields important metabolites that have been shown to contribute to the prevention and treatment of obesity. And when there is an imbalance in our gut microbiome, or when we kill the good bacteria, these important metabolites aren't produced and weight gain can ensue. Glyphosate is taken up by plants through the soil on which it's sprayed, and concentrated amounts could be found in highly genetically modified crops such as corn, soy, and wheat. Now, source 6 in the info box. Glyphosate induces obesity. Just a few years ago, researchers from Shanghai, China, identified one of the gut bacterial overgrowths associated with obesity and published their results in a paper entitled "An opportunistic pathogen isolated from the gut of an obese human causes obesity in germ-free mice." So this, unfortunately, is animal testing. The endotoxin-producing bacteria was found overpopulated in the gut of a severely obese patient who was also insulin-resistant, hypertensive, and suffered from the array of obesity-related health issues. Could something as simple as reducing the opportunistic Enterobacter via diet be the solution to obesity? Could they induce obesity in mice bred specifically to resist excessive weight gain simply by increasing the bacterial load? So this study, albeit small and in need of replication, shows us that when the balance of good to bad bacteria shifts, obesity is induced. And then when we know that glyphosate is killing our good gut bacteria and is an endocrine disruptor, changing our hormonal environment in our bodies, then it is not far to conclude that glyphosate induces obesity as well. Next resource. The use of glyphosate modifies the environment, which stresses the living microorganisms. The highly pathogenic bacteria are highly resistant to glyphosate. However, most of beneficial bacteria were found to be moderate to highly susceptible. A reduction of beneficial bacteria in the gastrointestinal tract microbiota by ingestion of glyphosate could disturb the normal gut bacterial community. To lose weight, feed the body what it needs: nutrients. The simple act of cleaning up one's diet, of moving away from conventionally grown foods towards organics, can have tremendous effect on reducing the body's toxic load and subsequent inflammation, weight gain, and disease. And then the very final source that I have for you in my info box is a study that is titled "Obesogens: An Environmental Link to Obesity." Click yourself through the links that I have in my info box for you. I want to know, did anything stand out to you in this video, or did you know all of this already? I just hope that this video really contributed to your knowledge about how you can really have your health back, and also how weight gain is not a matter of your discipline and willpower. I hope with the last Q&A in this video this got clear. And it's just about the right choices that are aligned with our body's design and how we are engineered. Please give me a like and let me know if this video served its purpose for you personally, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.